Now let's start with the first topic, which is accepting the user input. There are a variety of ways in which user can interact with the game, either by using mouse or by keyboard or by joystick. So there are different ways with which the user can give input to the program or to the game. So it's very important to poll the state of these keys or buttons to take the required action. There are two ways with the help of which we can handle these events. The first thing is we need to check the state, and second thing is we need to perform the event handling. To check the state, we need to poll the state of the keys or button, and there are different types of events which are already present in the module of the Pygame to handle the events. So by calling the function, we can check the status of the input device or the values and their current position. So we can get the current state of these input devices by polling the devices. Now there are different input modules like keyboard, mouse and joystick. So with the help of these three devices, we will take the input from the user and then we will take the required action. Now let's see what are the different modules, what are the different functions and events which are present for keyboard, mouse and joystick. The input device keyboard. So with the help of get pressed and get modes, we can get the input from the keyboard. For example, keyboards has different keys and every key has a key constant associated with it. So to identify which key is pressed, there is a special constant which is assigned to each and every key, and that constants begin with K underscore. So the keyboard constant begin with the K underscore and each key has a special identifier. So we can easily identify which key is pressed with the help of this special K underscore constant. Now there are different modules in the Pygame.key. Pygame.key is a module under which there are different functions with the help of which we can get access to keyboard and we can get to know which type of keys are pressed and what are the functions are triggered. So getPressed function returns the tuple and it gives us the status of the pressed key on the keyboard. So whatever key is pressed on the keyboard, we can get the input with the help of get underscore pressed. Another thing is get underscore modes. So get underscore mode is used to get the status of the modifier keys. So different modifier keys are alter, control, shift, locks. So these are the different modifier key. So if you want to get the input from the modifier key, we will use get underscore mode, and if you want to get the input of just keys, then we will get that with the help of get pressed button. So whatever the keys are pressed, accordingly we will write the code for the specific buttons and we will perform the action. So all this functionality like get pressed, get modes, and there are many other functions also are all present in Pygame.key module. So to access keyboard and to understand what the user is trying to interact with the game through the keyboard, we will use the module which is Pygame.key, and under that there are different functions. With the help of those functions, we will manage the interaction between the user and the game. The next input device is mouse. To get the position of the mouse, there are many functions actually. So Pygame.mouse is a module which contains all the different functions with the help of which you can handle mouse. So to get the x and y coordinates of the mouse position, get underscore pos is used. Basically, it gets the position of the mouse. It returns the x and y coordinates of the mouse in respect to top left corner of the window. When we hover a mouse on the screen, basically it gives us the coordinates. It gives us x and y coordinate. It returns x and y coordinates. So whenever you will move mouse on the screen, so this get underscore pos will return the x and y coordinate of the mouse. The next is get underscore rel. Rel stands for relative. So this also gives us the position of the mouse on the screen, but it gives relative position based on the previous calls. So if you want to get the relative position, then you can use get underscore rel relative and it gives you the position based on the previous call. Now there are different buttons on the mouse as well. So if you want to get the positions or if you want to know the status of these buttons, we can get that. Mostly there are 3 buttons. So if you want to check the status of this button, whether it is pressed or not pressed, then we can get that with the help of get underscore pressed. So this is the get underscore pressed. So if the mouse button is pressed, we can know the status using this function, which is get underscore pressed. So there are many functions associated with mouse, but these are some of the basic functions which I have discussed with you. So basically we are discussing the functions which are used to check the status of the input devices. The next is joystick. So if you are playing a game with the help of joystick, then there are also different functions which are used to check the status of the joystick. So get underscore axis. So this returns the position of a specific axis on the joystick. Then there is a get underscore ball. So to return the trackball x and y coordinate, this function is used. Then to know the button status on the joystick, get underscore button is used. And hat control status, for hat control status, get underscore hat is used. So these are the different functions which we have discussed for keyboard, mouse and joysticks are related to checking the status. So if you want to check the status of these input devices, these are the different functions which are present in different modules like pygame.key, pygame.mouse and pygame.joystick. You can use it and check the status and can take action accordingly. But in case if user clicks 2 or 3 buttons back to back, then there must be some order to determine the sequence of events. So that can be done with the help of event handling. So it's very important to know the sequence of event, in which order the user has pressed the keys, and accordingly we are going to take the actions. So there is a queue, and in that queue all the events get logged, and one by one the event is taken out of the queue and it is executed. Now let's understand what is event handling. So till now we have discussed how to check the status of the input devices. After checking the status of the input devices, it's very important to take the required action. So we can take the required action with the help of event handling. Now let's understand first different events which are triggered for mouse, keyboard and joystick. So whenever there are two events for keyboard, that is key up and key down. So key up event is triggered when the keyboard button is pressed. So if user presses any key on the keyboard, then the key up event is triggered, and then the program will know that some key is pressed, and according to that the logic will be triggered. The next is key down. Key down is when the user releases the key. So that is the key down event. So there are the two main events, key up and key down for the keyboard. The next event is for mouse. So there are three events for mouse, that is mouse button up, mouse button down and mouse motion. Now what is mouse button down? Mouse button down is when the keyboard mouse button is released. So whenever the mouse button is released, that is mouse button down, and whenever the mouse button is pressed, that is mouse button up event. The another event is mouse motion. So if you want to know the current location of your mouse, then you can detect that with the help of mouse motion event. So when the mouse is moving on the screen, you can get the location of the cursor based on the mouse motion event. So these are basically three events under mouse input device. The next is joystick input device. So again there are different events for joystick. The first one is joy axis motion. So it tells you whether the axis is changed or not. The next is joy ball motion. So it tells you whether there is a movement, whether the ball rotates or not. Then joy button down. Joy button down is used when the joystick is released, and joy button up when the button on the joystick is pressed, and then joy hat motion when there is a changes in the hat. Similarly, you can also create your custom events. So there are some reserved ID which can be used to create the custom event in the program.